We know Plato defined art as imitation. Plato defined art as imitation. And what do you think? How does Aristotle define art? What is the Aristotelian definition of art? What do you think? You must have heard of it, at least in some of the classes. What do you think Aristotle says about art? What is his definition of art? Some of you must know. Because there are a few guys who were in my own class. What do you think? What does Aristotle say about art? Okay, again, he says art is imitation. So the mimetic theory of art is common to most of the ancient classical Greek philosophers. All of them agree with the fact that art is imitation. But he is significantly different from Plato when he is saying that it is not just imitation of something that is in the transcendental world. It is an imitation of something that is in the real world, which you experience, the world of experience. In art, you are imitating what you experience in the world. You are imitating the world of your experience. So, though they define art the same way, with the same words, they understand it differently. So that has to be very clear for us. The art of poetry, the actual title of the poetics, it has reference to the art of poetry. And poetry he defines, there is poetry and fable stories. There are two kinds of literature. And in poetry, there are again drama, lyric poetry and epic. There are three kinds of poetry. He divides art of poetry into verse drama, lyric poetry and epic. These are the three classifications. Verse drama means verses, verse and prose. You know verse and prose. So verse drama, lyric poetry and epic. These are the three kinds of poetry. And the drama itself he divides into three. Again, drama is divided again into three. They are comedy, tragedy and satire plays. So he divides art of poetry into three. They are verse drama, lyric poetry and epic. And the drama he divides again into three. They are comedy, tragedy and satire plays. So these are the classifications. So all of them are mimetic. All of them share the function of mimesis or imitation of life. All of them are imitating life. So he divides the art of poetry into three: verse drama, lyric poetry and epic. But then different three ways as Aristotle describes it. So Aristotle describes that there are differences in the music, rhythm, harmony, meter and melody. The genres all share the function of mimesis or the imitation of life. But there are different three ways. Differences in music, rhythm, harmony, meter, melody and differences in the goodness of characters, differences of goodness in the characters, differences in how the narrative is presented, telling a story or how it is acted out. So these are the key differences. They are all imitation of life, but they are different by these parameters. Differences in music, rhythm, harmony, meter and melody, differences of goodness in characters, differences in the in how the narrative is presented, telling a story or how it is acted out, or acting it out, how it is acting it out. So there is epic poetry, tragedy, comedy, and there are different kinds of poetry: dithyrambic poetry, nomic poetry. So in epic poetry, tragedy, comedy, and dithyrambic poetry, the music of the flute and of the lyre it is used in most of their forms. Dithyrambic poetry is a kind of it's a genre of poetry of ancient Greeks. It was sung in honor of, it was sung and people used to dance along with in honor of god Dionysius, who was the god of fertility and god of wine. So we just need to understand there is a poetry called dithyrambic poetry, which is named after Dithram, which was an ancient Greek hymn sung and danced in honor of Dionysius, the god of wine and fertility. So it's a literary form of the ancient Greeks. So they are different in the medium of imitation, the object of imitation, the manner and mode of imitation. These are the key differences. The medium of imitation. The medium means we will look into that. The medium of imitation, the objects of imitation, the manner and mode of imitation. Okay. They all differ from one another in three aspects: the medium of imitation, the objects of imitation, the manner and mode of imitation. So we will try to understand what is the medium of imitation, the media of imitation. Imitation is a very natural aspect, means it is very natural that we imitate something. Or means it is a habitual thing to imitate somebody, to imitate things. It is very habitual. But for some people, it is a conscious effort. By conscious effort, they are imitating. Okay. To know that, how did you learn to walk? As children, we all learn to walk. We learn to walk. It is a habit because when all others in our home, in our family, when all of them are walking, we also try to imitate them. How you learn to speak? Your parents are speaking, your siblings are speaking. So you listen to that, you see the movements of their lip, you listen to the voice that is coming out, and you try to imitate it, and you learn speaking, you learn how to speak. So it is a very habitual thing. But if you are a mimicry artist, you are trying to imitate the voice of Narendra Modi, or if you are trying to imitate the voice of Rahul Gandhi, or you are trying to imitate the voice of some other film stars like Vivek Oberoi or Amitabh Bachchan or whoever. So when you there is a conscious effort. So it can be imitation by mere habit. It can also be imitation consciously or by conscious art. So when you are doing it consciously, there is an element of art. So we imitate various objects through our voice or through the medium of color and form, through the medium of voice, or also we imitate by rhythm, language, harmony, either singly or combined. So it is not just the imitation of the mimicry artist, they are imitating the voice or imitating the habits or something, or mannerisms are imitated sometimes. But we also imitate by the medium of color and form. When you are painting or when you are making a sculpture, you imitate using the medium of color and form. Or again, you imitate by voice. You can imitate a lot of things by voice. You can imitate the voice of rain. You can imitate the voice of birds. You can make the voice of so many things. And also, imitation is also produced by rhythm, language, harmony. Imitation is possible. How? Means rhythm. When you imitate an emotion by rhythm, when we listen to some kind of rhythms, we feel tensed. Some kind of tension is coming in us because it is imitating tension. Or some kind of harmony can put your mind at calm. You make your mind calm because that harmony, that melody, again, it is imitating the feeling or emotion of some people. So with rhythm, language, harmony, either they are singly or combined. By language, of course, you can express so many things in language. You can imitate the life of a man in a written form. So it can be poetry or prose. So using imitation is also possible to the medium of rhythm, harmony and language, either singly or combined. So when you are playing a flute or any musical instrument, harmony and rhythm are employed alone. There is no language used there. So when you are playing flute or when you are playing flute or when you are playing guitar, harmony and rhythm alone are employed. And if you look at, especially for the Garba, Navaratri, we all dance around the music, around the platform there. We dance around in our Garba ground, we all dance. And they are singing there, and because we don't use any microphone or any loudspeakers, we don't hear them singing most of the time. We but listen to the drum beats and we are dancing. So the rhythm alone, with rhythm alone you can dance. You don't need harmony or any other music in order to dance. With rhythm alone you can dance. And in dance you may imitate certain characters, emotion, action by your rhythmical movement. In dance you can show how a river flows, how birds fly. You imitate it in dance, following the rhythm. So by your rhythmical movement you can imitate so many things. And imitation by means of language, either in prose or words, you can imitate. And again, when it comes to language and rhythm, they use meter. In poetry is very metric. They use meter. So you can follow a particular rhythm for one kind of meter. For another kind of meter, there will be another kind of rhythm. So you imitate them in combinations of different meters. And there is verse and prose. Words are there, prose is also there. It is possible that we think all those who write verses are poets and those who write prose are not poets. But it is not correct. Aristotle says even if somebody writes words, he need not be a poet. Even when a treatise on medicine or natural science is brought out in words, you can write something in words. When you write about natural science, when you write about medical science, you can write in words. You can sing it also, but it is not poetry. Okay. Means he cites an example like this. Homer and Empedocles have nothing in common except the meter. They write in the same meter. But Homer is a poet, Empedocles is a physicist. He writes about the physical world. He writes science. Homer writes poetry, epics. So Homer and Empedocles have nothing in common except the meter. So that it would be right to call the one poet and the other physicist rather than the poet. So Empedocles is not a poet even though he writes verses which can be sung. So he identifies that difference. The medium that I mentioned about, like rhythm, tune, meter, they are used in dithyrambic poetry and nomic poetry. They are also used in tragedy and comedy. So in dithyrambic poetry and nomic poetry, you will find all of them, they are used together. But in tragedy and comedy, you will find at one time one medium is used, and at another time another medium is used. So he identifies the application of these different medium in different genres of poetry. So in tragedy and comedy, the difference is one medium is employed now, and after that another is employed. In nomic poetry and dithyrambic poetry, they are used in combination. In tragedy and comedy, they are used singly. In the dithyrambic poetry and nomic poetry, they are used in combination. These different media are employed in these different kinds of poetry or drama. In dithyrambic poetry and nomic poetry, these means are employed in combination. Rhythm, tune, meter, harmony, all of them are used in combination. In tragedy and comedy, now one means is employed, now another. I am just taking this text from poetics itself, Aristotle's own text. I am quoting from that. So whatever I am saying here is mostly from the Aristotelian writing itself. I don't go to some other secondary or later sources. I go into Aristotelian sources itself in order to explain this. That's why this kind of terminology is there. Secondly, the objects of imitation. After media of imitation, we have the objects of imitation. So what is the object of imitation? Means objects of imitation are usually men in action. Not only men, women also in action. But you know, that time it was a patriarchal world and patriarchal society, so it will be always stated like that. The men were always honored or praised or celebrated in this drama. It's very rare that you find some women being celebrated. Anyway, since the objects of imitation are men in action, these men must be of higher type or lower type. Okay. when you come to understand the object of imitation, that means there is an object in front of you which you are imitating as an artist. So it can be the person itself can be of higher type and lower type, and also your imitation also can be of a higher type or lower type. Okay. So it follows that we must represent men or we must imitate men in three ways. It will be of three kinds. There are, when you imitate an object, it will be an imitation of three kinds according to Aristotle. He says either as better than in real life, either as better than in real life. Second, or as worse than real life, worse than real life. And third, as they are, the same as they are. So there are the three kinds of imitation. When you imitate an object, you will be imitating in three ways: better than real life, worse than real life, or same as real life. So this is a point that you have to remember about Aristotle with regard to our own means finance practices, our own art practice, and also in order to understand tragedy, comedy, and those kinds of things, you have to have this notion very clear. So the objects of imitation. When you imitate an object, it can be of three types. It can be higher, lower, or equal in quality. In quality of the imitation, it can be higher, lower, or equal. So he brings in the example of painting in discussing the objects of imitation. So there are three types or three qualities of imitation, and he names some of the artists of the preceding types. So it can be better than in real life, or he gives the name of an artist called Polygnotus. Have you heard the name Polygnotus? He is a painter, ancient Greek painter, Polygnotus. So better than in real life. Polygnotus depicted men as nobler than they are. Okay, when he painted, it appeared like he painted in a much more nobler way than they actually are. So if he is making a painting of mine, suppose I have some pimple or some kind of marks on my face, and maybe I don't have a finger, means I have some kind of issues on my physical appearance. When he does my painting, he will make everything clear. Like you are going for a Photoshop in the studio, means after taking a passport size photo nowadays, most of the studio people just edit it in Photoshop and make you look a little more better by adjusting the light, by using some kind of tools on Photoshop. They make you look better. So in the same manner, he considered Polygnotus depicted men as nobler than they are, and Poussin, he was another artist, represented men worse than in real life. The best example could be caricature. When you make a caricature, you may disfigure the actual image. Like you may exaggerate some kind of features on the face will be exaggerated in order to make a caricature. Okay, so you don't imitate as it is. You don't imitate in a idealized way. You imitate in a worse way. Okay, so some kind of exaggerations of certain features of the face will be coming in the caricatures. In the same way, Poussin is said to have imitated people worse than in the real life. And Dionysius drew them true to life. Okay, as they are in real life, true to life. So very naturalistic way. So this is the understanding of Aristotle about three types of imitation. When you imitate an object, it can be of three types. So I have tried to find out some images for these. I found a reproduction of Polygnotus, and I did not find anything about Poussin or Dionysius. But I have found certain paintings, portrait paintings from ancient Greek period, and I have put here as examples. You can just see them. I don't know whether Aristotle referred to him. He referred to some other artist, but I found this one only. So it's a Greek painting which appeared on a stamp of Greece later. So this was painted in painted in the 7th century BC, 630 to 600 BC, and we can consider it as something worse than really how it were. Okay, actually it could have been better than this. But when he painted, it became worse than what it actually was, what they actually were. Okay. And this is another painting. If you look at the figure, it is more true to life. It is also again another painting from 6th century BC by Cyax. 530 to 500 BC is the time. It's again a vase painting. Compared to the other image, it is more true to life. When you look at especially the human figure, it is more true to life. You can see the other one also again. Okay, in terms of that naturalism that happens in the painting. So it is more true to life. And I got a reproduction of Polygnotus, reconstruction of an ancient painting by Polygnotus, Ilium Persis, that is the title of the painting. It's a reproduction of the ancient painting, Ilium Persis by Polygnotus. Reproduction was made in 1893 by Carl Roberts. This painting is not very clear. I have a closer image. So Aristotle considers this as better than what they actually were, how they actually were. So there is an attempt to idealize. It's a drawing actually. So he considered Polygnotus as someone who paints an object better than they actually were. So that is the difference that I wanted to show. And it is not only about the painting. When you come to literature or any other forms of art, you find it. So you find Homer makes men better than they are. In Homer's literature, the epics, you find men better than they are. Cleophon, as they are, same as they are. In an equal, the quality is equaling with the quality in actual life. Hegemon, the Thasian, he is the inventor of paradise. He imitated worse than they are. Hegemon, he is the inventor of paradise. He imitated men worse than they are. And Nicocaris, the author of Delia, he imitated again worse than they are. So in literature also, in poetry, drama, you find the same. Men can be imitated better than they are. Men can be imitated same as they are. Men can be imitated worse than they are. So each of the modes of imitation above, they will exhibit these differences and become a distinct kind of imitating objects. These kinds of diversities are not only seen with painting or literature. It's also true about poetry. It's also true about music. When you play a flute, when you are dancing, when you are playing a stringed instrument, in any case, this is very true. You can imitate better than real life, the same as real life, or worse than real life. In painting, in sculpture, in poetry, in drama, in music, in any kind of art, this is possible. This is applicable. That's what Aristotle considers. And now you have to understand that difference between tragedy and comedy. We have to look at the difference between tragedy and comedy. What do you think tragedy is? I want your answer. What do you think tragedy is? What is your understanding of tragedy? Ashaviri says it is sad ending, something sorrowful, Bahul. Mahima says it is about suffering. Kena says it's something painful. Drashti says it's a branch of drama. Kanchan says it is heartache. It's a part of drama, Halda, Kanchan. Things don't go well, Sambit Joshi. Things don't go well for the protagonist, it inspires pity. Daniel says unexpected event which leads to sorrow, which is not expected. Payal says it can be an accident or anything which is related to suffering. Okay. That is our general understanding about tragedy. I don't deny any of your answers, but there is a slight difference in the Aristotelian understanding of tragedy. Nafi says something unwanted. Okay, there is a slight difference in the understanding of Aristotelian. There is a slight difference when Aristotle says about tragedy. It is not exactly the same as we understand today. So now we already saw when you imitate an object, you can imitate it in three ways. You can imitate better than they are, in a higher quality, higher type of imitation. You can imitate same as they are, that equality of the thing that is imitated. And you can imitate in a worse manner than they are. And when I say worse, don't take it in a moral sense. It's about the imitation that they are saying, the quality of imitation that they are saying, that he is saying. So the distinction marks of tragedy from comedy is the same thing. The tragedy aims to represent men better than the actual life, and comedy aims representing men worse than actual life. Okay, that is the basic difference that Aristotle points out. Tragedy aims at representing men of higher type and men in a better manner than they actually are. That is what tragedy does. What comedy does is they represent man of lower type and they imitate in a poor fashion, poorer than they are or worse than they actually are. So that is the basic difference that Aristotle points out about tragedy. And in tragedy you will see very serious subjects will be dealt with. Comedy will be very lighter subjects. Very trivial things will be dealt with, trivial kinds of imitation. Comedy will be very serious kind of imitation. Tragedy will be very serious kind of imitation, and comedy very trivial subjects will be imitated. If you, for example, if you look at a comic mask, if you go for a circus show, very often there will be some kind of buffoons or comedians playing there, and if you wear a comic mask, it will be very ugly. It will be very much distorted. Okay, so the comic imitation is of that kind, imitation in a poorer manner or worse than they actually are. Tragedy is, on the other hand, tragedy is a higher type of imitation of a higher type. Is that clear to you? Tragedy aims at representing men as better than they are in actual life. Comedy aims at representing men worse than they are in actual life. And tragedy deals with serious subjects, whereas comedy deals with trivial subjects. Tragedy is an imitation in words of characters of higher type. Comedy is an imitation in words of characters of lower type. So I hope this is clear to you. And we will try to understand the etymological meaning of tragedy and comedy. The tragedy word comes from tragos, a Greek word for goat. And it has nothing to do with the literal meaning of tragedy today. So it comes from two words. Oide means song, tragos means god. So it literally means god song. That is how the word comes. Tragos, oide. Joining these two words comes the word tragedy. And this came as a reference to the god satires of theatrical plays of Dorians. And comedy, it is representing men as worse than they are, trivial subjects. So it is the imitation in words of characters of lower type. It comes again from Greek komos, which means revel, carousing. Oide is song. So this is from that these words comedy comes from. And the third part is the manner of imitation, the medium of imitation, the object of imitation, and again the manner of imitation. We will go more into tragedy. We will try to understand tragedy in the next class. So before that I have to wind up this. So it is the manner of imitation. Third is the manner of imitation, the medium of imitation, the object of imitation, the manner of imitation. The manner of imitation, the medium being the same, the object being the same, the poet may imitate by narration. in which case he can either take another personality as Homer does, or speak in his own person unchanged, or he may present all his characters as living and moving before us. So it's about the manner of imitation. So you can imitate in different ways. Like you are becoming a third person and you are narrating a story about some others. You are narrating the story of some other guys. Or another kind of imitation is you are becoming the person who tells the stories. The author identifies himself with the protagonist. Okay. And the third, it can be said from different angles. Different people are speaking for themselves, and all those characters are living around us, and we are seeing it. We are seeing like people are living around us. So this is the manner of imitation. So how do you imitate? There are different ways in which you can imitate. So it can be by narration. The poet may be narrating a story, or it can be played like a drama. It can be played on a stage, on a theatre you can play it, or in suppose you can imitate the same object. In order to understand from our terms, I am sitting here as an object. You can imitate me on a canvas, on stone, and you can write a poetry about me. So there are different manner of imitation, and in that itself it can be done differently. Like if an author wants to write a story about me, he can write it from a third person. Okay. He can write the story of somebody else, or he can identify with the character and speak like in the story he will be presenting himself as the protagonist. Okay, that is another way of imitation. And the third way of imitation is different characters are playing around us and you are living in between them. So all of them are speaking for themselves, and that is another way of imitation. So it's about the different manners in which you can imitate in a poetry or a drama or in any form of art. I think that is clear.